Another quote from Seymour Bernstein in his chapter 11 in the With Your Own Two Hands book. The chapter's on nervousness. And he said this about Sarah Bernhardt, who was a legendary French actress. And he said she was no stranger to nervousness. And I'm quoting, "One evening as she was about to enter her dressing room before a performance, a young actress rushed up to her and shyly asked for her autograph. Momentarily annoyed, Bernhardt quickly took the situation in stride and hastily signed her name. But even she, whose acting technique was equal to any demand, could not hide the slight tremor of hand and pallor of complexion that tell of pre-performance nerves, nor was this lost on her young admirer. Excuse me for saying so, madame, but I see that you are nervous. Why is it that I never get nervous before a performance?" As though responding to a cue that had been rehearsed 1,000 times, Bernhardt replied, quote, "Oh, but you will, my dear, you will when you have learned to act," unquote. I love that. I love that because I get really stressed before a performance. And my hand can shake a little. And, we could all tell story after story of things that happen. And I chuckle to myself when a younger performer, and most people get nervous, but it's interesting when you come across someone who kind of flips it off and like no big deal. And sometimes it's fine, but very often in my teaching I'll find a student, if they're kind of a little, I don't want to say arrogant, but if the confidence crosses the line and they're a little cocky or arrogant, sometimes that can do a double whammy on us. So I think we have to be careful. Not that we want the nerves, but I also believe that when we stress a little, and we don't want to stress too much, and I won't get into that. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and I'm not an expert. All I know is my experience and working with hundreds of students. But the preparation and the thought of that performance can propel us to do a lot of practicing, a lot of preparation. And the more performing we do, hopefully we get better and better at it. Little experience I had outside of music. I took my kids when they were growing up. We went to Disneyland almost every year. And the California Adventure, they love to do that, park hopper and all of that stuff. And I'm not a fan of roller coasters. I will do them. But so I usually sat out for when they went on California Screaming, which is in the Disney California Adventure, and the big roller coaster. So I usually would just watch them. And one year they convinced me, this is several years ago, that I needed to go on. And so they got us all on, and I could hardly breathe that whole, however long it is, 3 minutes, I'm not sure. It was terrifying for me. I thought I was going to just lose it. So, and that time just happened, and I've never seen it before or since, but there was no line. And so we got off, and my kids said, "Mom, let's go again." Okay. So I thought, well, I made it through and I'm still alive. So we went a second time, and because I'd been through it, it wasn't quite so terrifying the second time. And there was still no line after we got off. And they said, "Let's do it again." And the third time, again, I had gone through it, and it it wasn't quite so bad the third, and we might have even done a fourth time. I don't know. I just know that we kept going on and on it. And by the time we finished, I was much more comfortable with California Screaming. And I have told that to many, many students that, you know, the more you perform, it doesn't get easy, but you have a sense of what's going to happen. You know when you're turning a corner and all of that. And so I believe our confidence level goes way up as we do it more and more and more, and especially when we do it with the same piece. For my college students, we meet every Friday in a performance class, studio class, and I encourage them to do the same piece several weeks in a row, because every week it gets a little bit better. And so that's a little suggestion there. Just keep doing it, because that confidence will go up. A couple of other little experiences. I had a student several years ago who had quite a bit of nerves, and we all have. Some students take performing more in stride, and others get a little bit nervous. And this student had a break from her piano study for several years and was coming back. And usually I find that we have to work a lot on the performing end, and we have nerves we have to work through. And so this student worked really hard and was dutiful about performing in class and preparing every piece. And when we were getting ready and coming up on that recital, and I have a 3-month whole, what do you call it? I have a 3-month plan that I take them through the 3 months before that, either the junior recital or the senior recital. And she was doing all of this, and she performed a lot. She had friends that would come and listen to her, and she just did everything. And did the recital. Of course, it was successful and it was wonderful, but I'll never forget her comment to me, because she performed in class, she performed for friends, she brought people into the concert hall and scheduled time, and we had lessons and played for people in you know, every which way you could imagine. But she commented that night of the recital felt so different, and said, nothing could have prepared me for this. And I had to chuckle, because here she had done every type of performing possible to lead up to, and then of course on the final showdown, if you will, that final recital, it still felt very, very different. And so performing takes a lot of practice, and it takes weeks and months and years of building up to keep increasing the confidence level. Another student said to me once, and this student was very confident in performing and confident in her memorizing and her musicality and technical, and had a lot of that. But she said to me she was surprised, you know, at that senior recital, at the amount of the mental energy that she had to have to make it through. And again, she built up that and all, and it was wonderful. But the performance itself, especially if you really built up to that and led to that, is always an interesting experience, and everyone says something different after. And so that's always interesting. A little, another side note on my experience, because when I was at BYU, again, I had some hard knocks as far as not having the confidence that I needed to be the winner. Finally, towards the end, my last year, I felt more confidence there. But when I moved to Kansas City to work on my doctorate, and I had the privilege of studying with Professor Joanne Baker at the conservatory at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. And she was absolutely just amazing. I could never say enough good about her. And she was one of the great teachers in the country, and we all just loved and adored her. She was musically just the best that you could ever find. Technically, interpretively, the way she taught phrasing and the way she taught sound, and she worked right with each of us right from day one on our sound and opening up the sound and voicing, and it was on, and she was very loving in her lessons. She was very complimentary, but yet she could just draw out, and boy, if it wasn't right, she told you. She was loving about it, but she let us know, and I could go on and on about her. And I always was musically and emotionally fed at every lesson, and it was energetic and just wonderful. One time, my final lesson before I was in a big competition for the whole state of Missouri, and I had worked really hard, played, and so this final lesson, and I believe I had 3 pieces. I had to perform 3 pieces, so it was like a 25 minute audition, whatever it was. And she was not happy with what I did. I played through everything, and she really, she didn't scold me. She just went detail by detail, and I needed to do this and fix this and on, and she was really firm. I guess that's because she's so loving all the time, but she was very firm about what I needed to do. And I left that lesson, and I went in the practice room and just cried. I just felt like I had disappointed her. And but I went to work and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced, and had the few days before this competition. And again, I am not the person who thinks that I'm going to win everyone else. I just never think that. But I, if anything, wanted to please my beloved teacher, Joanne Baker. And again, she was very firm with me. And I went in and performed, and I felt really good about it, and I felt like things came together. And lo and behold, I was the winner, and that was such a shock. I couldn't believe it. It was like, I was not expecting that, especially when I'd had a few days earlier a lesson where she wasn't happy with, or not happy, she was firm about what I needed to do. And I thought, I'd sat and pondered a lot about that later, and I thought, she was so amazing all the time about what we did well and what we needed to do. And here I had a lesson that she was quite firm, and I could tell she wasn't, that I wasn't up to par. But what that did for me was I worked really hard. And so that gave me a huge boost, and I spent a few years, those few years in Kansas City when I was entering different competitions, and I didn't always win, but I always did really well. And it was an interesting thing because I learned something about confidence, and the more I did it, the better I got, and the better I came out. And I'm not one who thinks everyone needs to compete, but it was when I finally started having that confidence, I did better. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for my teachers. Before I close this little segment, let me just read that same quote, if I can find it. Because as we've had a crazy couple of years now, going on 2 years with this global pandemic, and we've learned, and I mentioned to the music teachers a couple of days ago, that we've all learned that music really is the balm of Gilead. It brings so much joy and peace and comfort. And I have had a chance at that conference to talk to several teachers, and we're all struggling, and we can feel like we don't know enough to I'm not as good as this one, or they all know this, and what do I do? And my advice to each one of us is that start with where we are and move forward, and remember the vision and the purpose of what we do is that we are giving the gift of music to each student, and in turn to their families and our communities. And there's nothing better than that. And music has been such a huge blessing in my life, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I can share. And let me just read that same quote that I started with earlier. Music is not a cure for the disease, but it is maybe a cure for our hearts. I love that. And that again was written by Aldo. Cicchini, a violinist from Milan, Italy, and as we know, the Italians have gone through a lot. So keep sharing, keep giving, keep teaching, and reach for the stars.